It happened so suddenly, like a storm out of nowhere. John Harrison, you're under investigation for fraudulent stock manipulations and corporate misconduct. The words rang in my ears as if they were a death sentence. The shock was immediate, followed by a rush of disbelief. How? Why? My empire, built over years of sweat, blood, and countless sacrifices, was now threatened. These accusations weren't just a stain on my reputation. They were a blow to everything I had worked for. I slammed my fist down on the desk. The room seemed to close in on me, the walls pressing tighter and tighter as the weight of the situation sank in. The media was already calling it a scandal of epic proportions, and my lawyers were scrambling to fight back. But every attempt to clear my name was met with new obstacles, new hurdles, as if someone was always one step ahead, orchestrating my downfall. "This isn't right, Liz," I muttered almost to myself as I turned toward my wife. She was standing at the doorway, her face pale but unreadable. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by her usual demeanor. "John, we'll figure this out," Liz said, her voice steady. "We'll hire the best lawyers. You've always been able to handle this sort of thing." She sounded confident, but I felt a chill in my chest. This wasn't like anything I had dealt with before. The charges were too serious, too widespread. And every time I tried to make progress, I was hit with a new piece of evidence or a new leak to the press, as if someone was feeding the media with the exact details that would make me look guilty. "I don't know, Liz. This feels wrong. Like someone knows every move I make." I ran a hand through my hair, trying to piece things together. "I need help. I need someone I can trust." "Of course, John. We'll get through this." But deep down, something didn't feel right. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. That night, I reached out to James, my former business partner, and the only man I truly trusted in this mess. The call was quick, but it felt like the lifeline I needed. "James, I need your help," I said, my voice urgent. "There's something wrong. I'm being set up, and I can't do this alone." "I've got your back, John. I'll look into it. We'll get to the bottom of this," James responded, his voice gruff but familiar. I hung up, trying to steady my nerves, but deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Someone was trying to destroy everything I had worked for. Someone close to me, and I had to find out who before it was too late. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It wasn't just the constant barrage of media reports or the endless meetings with my lawyers. No, it was something deeper, something unsettling. It felt like a shadow was hanging over me, knowing my every move, anticipating my every action. James had promised to look into things. He didn't give me any false reassurances, just a firm, unwavering promise that he'd help uncover the truth. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, emails, and meetings with people who once respected me, but now treated me like a criminal. Every one of them seemed to avoid my eyes, as if they knew something I didn't. Meanwhile, Liz continued to be by my side, but there was an eerie sense of distance between us. It wasn't that she wasn't supportive on the surface, she was, but there were moments when I caught her looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was it pity? Disappointment? Or was there something more? A quiet doubt gnawed at me, but I pushed it away. I didn't have time for doubts. I had to clear my name. Then late one night, James called. "John, I found something." His voice was low, serious. "Something strange. It's not just the media or the legal issues. It's deeper than that. This is all coming from inside your own company." I leaned forward, gripping the phone tighter. "Inside my company? What do you mean?" "I'm telling you, someone has been feeding information to the press. Very specific, very detailed information. It's almost like they know the business better than you do." A chill ran down my spine. Who could it be? That's what I'm trying to figure out. "But I'm telling you, John, someone close to you is setting you up." I didn't say anything. The weight of the realization was sinking in. It wasn't just a smear campaign. It was a full-fledged assault, and it was coming from someone I trusted. "I need more time. I'll dig deeper," James continued. "But we got to be careful. Whoever is behind this, they're watching us." I nodded, but the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a financial scandal anymore. This was personal. I needed answers, and fast. The next morning, I reached out to Timothy, an old lawyer friend of mine who had handled some of the toughest cases in my career. If anyone could help me turn the tide, it was him. He didn't waste any time. "John, this is big. Too big to ignore," Timothy said after our brief conversation. "I'll start looking into your financial records. But remember, whoever did this is playing a very dangerous game. We need to be careful." As I hung up, I could feel the walls closing in again. It wasn't just a business at risk anymore. It was my freedom, my reputation, and possibly my life. But the real kicker came when I started hearing whispers. Through my investigation, James uncovered something I never could have anticipated. It was Liz. She was connected to this in some way, I was sure of it. James's investigation had revealed that she was the one who'd been pushing for changes within the company, subtly altering decisions, influencing key players, all while pretending to be my loyal wife. And then there was Carter, her young lover, the man who had started to weave himself into the very fabric of my life. My own wife, my trusted partner of 25 years, had been conspiring against me with him. I couldn't believe it. Liz? The woman I had built everything with? The woman who promised to stand by me no matter what? It was too much to take in. But as I pieced things together, I began to see the pattern. It wasn't just the business that they wanted. It was everything. My wealth, my reputation, and all the power that came with it. They were trying to take it all. The deeper James and Timothy dug, the more horrifying the truth became. What started as a financial scandal had quickly turned into a personal betrayal of the highest order. Every shred of evidence pointed to a single, heart-wrenching reality. This conspiracy wasn't just about money. It was about my own flesh and blood trying to tear me down. "I've got something else," James said one evening over the phone, his voice low and filled with frustration. "It's not just Liz and Carter." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "Your kids, John. Michael and Christina. They're involved in this too." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What?" "I found communication logs, meeting notes, things pointing to them supporting Liz and Carter. They're all in on it. They've been helping with the manipulation of the business, steering things in the direction they want." My heart pounded in my chest. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "My children," I repeated, stunned. "They're part of this?" James didn't answer right away. I could hear the rustling of papers, the sound of him digging through the mounting evidence. "I'm afraid so, John. They've been helping their mother, maybe even more than you realize." I hung up the phone, my mind reeling. Michael had always been the one to take over the business someday. I had watched him grow into a man, confident and capable, believing that one day he'd carry on the legacy I'd built. Christina, too, had always been a sharp mind, someone I thought would share my vision for the future. But now it seemed they'd been playing me all along. They weren't just passive players in this game. They were active participants, helping their mother and Carter manipulate the company, fabricating lies and scheming to destroy me. Their loyalty was as thin as paper, and I hadn't seen it coming. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faces of the people I had trusted most in this world. Liz, Michael, Christina, my own children, my own flesh and blood. All of them had sided with a man half my age, a man I'd never even considered a threat. It was clear now. This was a family affair. The people I thought would have my back were the ones trying to tear everything down. But in that dark, lonely moment, a single thought kept cutting through the fog of betrayal. If Liz and the kids had decided to betray me, I couldn't afford to stay passive anymore. I needed to act. I needed to confront them. I had no idea how much longer I could endure this. The house had become a prison, a place where I was no longer safe, even in the company of those who should have supported me most. Every day, it felt like the walls were closing in, the pressure mounting with each passing hour. My trust had been shattered, and my family, the ones I thought I knew better than anyone, had turned their backs on me. That's when I finally did it. I confronted Liz. We were sitting in the study, the weight of everything hanging heavy between us. Liz was calm, as usual, but her eyes betrayed her. There was something cold there, a hint of something darker beneath her composed exterior. Liz, I started, my voice tight with anger. I know everything. She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Her lips curled into a small, forced smile. I don't know what you mean, John. You think I'm stupid? You think I wouldn't notice what's been going on? You, Carter, Michael, Christina, you've been plotting against me from the start. For the first time, there was a flicker of panic in her eyes. But she quickly masked it with a false calmness. John, you don't know what you're talking about. We've always been a team. A team? I repeated, my voice rising. You've been working behind my back, plotting with Carter and the kids to destroy everything I've built. You think I wouldn't see it? You think I wouldn't know? Liz leaned back in her chair, trying to compose herself. She looked at me like I was a child, a petulant fool who didn't understand the bigger picture. John, calm down. You've always been so wrapped up in your work, you never noticed what was happening in our lives. I'm sorry, but I need more than what you've given me. Her words hit harder than I expected. The coldness, the detachment. It was as if the woman I had married was gone, replaced by someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. But it was too late for her explanations. Too late for apologies. You and Carter are trying to take over everything. The business, my reputation. You want to destroy me, don't you? Liz didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stood up and walked over to the window, her back turned to me. I never wanted this, John. But you left me no choice. I needed something more than what you could give me. I stood up too, rage boiling in my veins. But as I stepped forward, I was stopped by a quiet voice. Emma's voice. Dad! I froze, my heart skipping a beat. Emma was standing in the doorway, her face pale, but there was a determination in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. It was as if she had just made a decision that would change everything. Dad, I know what they've been doing, and I can't be part of it. I turned to face her, disbelief mixing with relief. Emma, my youngest daughter, the one I thought I'd lost in all of this, was standing by my side. Emma, you don't have to get involved. This is between me and your mother, I said, my voice softening. But inside, I was relieved. At least someone hadn't abandoned me. No, Dad, I won't stand by and let them destroy you. I'll help you. I won't be part of their lies. For a moment, I couldn't speak. It was like a weight was lifting off my chest. Despite the betrayal, despite everything, I still had one person on my side, my daughter. I walked over to her, pulling her into a tight hug. Thank you, Emma. Thank you for not abandoning me. She squeezed me back, and I felt a new sense of resolve. The battle wasn't over, but I wasn't alone anymore. Together, we could take on whatever came next. As I looked at Liz, standing by the window with a cold, distant expression, I knew what had to be done. The time for mercy was over. I couldn't let her or the others manipulate me any longer. This ends now, I said, my voice steady. You've made your choice, Liz. But I'm not going down without a fight. And this time, I wasn't going to fight alone. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in on me. The investigation had become all-consuming. It wasn't just the media, it was the whole damn world turning against me. But amidst this chaos, I found myself relying more and more on the few people I trusted. James had always been my right-hand man in business, and now he was the one risking everything to help me uncover the truth. He worked tirelessly, going through financial records, company emails, and internal communications. But it wasn't just about tracking the money. The deeper we dug, the more I began to realize the full scope of the betrayal. The first real breakthrough came when James brought in a private investigator, someone he'd worked with years ago. His name was Tony Cole, and while he wasn't the most polished individual, there was no one more tenacious when it came to digging up dirt. Tony didn't waste any time. He went straight to the heart of the conspiracy, speaking to people I had no idea were involved. He even managed to uncover that Liz and Carter had been using encrypted messaging services to communicate behind my back, something I should have suspected earlier. "I've found the smoking gun, John," Tony said one afternoon, sliding a file across the table to me. "Carter's been siphoning funds from your company through offshore accounts. And Liz knew about it. She's been playing both sides." My blood ran cold. The man my wife had been sleeping with had been bleeding me dry. But that wasn't the worst of it. What came next was even more disturbing. James and Tony had managed to get their hands on a secret email thread between Carter and Michael, my eldest son. It turned out that Michael had been actively undermining me within the company, making decisions that were directly contrary to the best interests of the business, all in an effort to destabilize things for Liz and Carter's takeover. Your son's been making a lot of decisions that go against your interests, James said, after going through the email thread. He's been helping Carter set up shell companies to funnel money, and all of it is going into accounts they control. My own son. The realization was like a slap to the face. I'd always trusted Michael to take over the business one day. I'd watched him grow from a boy into a man, thinking he would carry on my legacy. But now, it seemed he had been complicit in his mother's scheme from the very beginning. I felt sick, but there was one thing that kept me going: Emma, my youngest daughter, the one who had never been caught up in the corporate world the way Michael and Christina were. Emma had always been close to me, and now she was standing by my side when the rest of the family had turned against me. And then there was Marcus. He was a close friend from my college days, someone who had gotten his start in finance long before I did. We'd lost touch over the years, but when things began to spiral, I reached out to him. Marcus had always had a sharp mind for the numbers, and more importantly, he had connections to people who could help. He had a lot of influence in the legal and financial worlds, and soon enough, he was putting pressure on key players in the corporate world, demanding they come clean about what they knew regarding Carter and Liz's operations. "I've got a few favors I can call in," Marcus had said on the phone, "but we need to get this to court as soon as possible. The longer this drags on, the worse it's going to look for you." His words were a reality check. The public pressure was mounting, and the longer I waited to act, the harder it would be to fight back. It was clear now. This wasn't just a matter of clearing my name. This was war, and I had to be prepared for a fight like I had never faced before. But it wasn't just about legal maneuvering or corporate takeovers. This was personal. It wasn't just my business they wanted, it was my life, my family, my future. I had to make one more call. "Timothy," I said, dialing my lawyer's number, my voice heavy with the realization of what was about to happen. "It's time. I'm filing the lawsuit. I'm going after Liz, Carter, and Michael. I'm taking this to the courts. Let's end this. I'll get the paperwork started, John. It's going to be a long road, but we'll make sure they pay for what they've done." By now, I was ready for whatever came next. The truth was out. I was done hiding, done playing along. The time had come to take the fight to them. I stood in front of the conference room window, staring out at the city that had once been the backdrop of my success. Now, it felt like everything was crumbling. The weight of the betrayal was unbearable, but the truth was clear now. Liz, Carter, and Michael had been plotting against me from the very beginning. The time had come for me to take the fight to them. We had gathered the evidence, the offshore accounts, the emails, the conversations. I could see it all now, the threads of deceit stretching back months, if not years. They had tried to break me, to steal everything I had built, and now they would pay. I looked over at Emma, who had been my anchor through all of this. Her eyes were focused and resolute, the calm in the storm. If it weren't for her, I might have given up long ago. But now, together, we were going to expose the truth. "We've got everything we need, Dad," Emma said, her voice steady as she handed me a file. "The court case is ready to go. All that's left is to go public." I nodded, still taking it all in. It wasn't just about winning a legal battle anymore. It was about my dignity, my honor, and the future of my family. The public needed to know what had really happened. The day of the trial arrived, and the courtroom was a spectacle. News outlets from every major network were there, cameras flashing as Liz, Carter, and Michael entered. They looked so composed, so confident, as if they had won before the trial had even begun. But that was the illusion. They had no idea what was about to hit them. The first few hours were filled with technical jargon and back and forth between lawyers. But then I stepped up to the stand, and everything changed. I looked directly at Liz, sitting across the room, her eyes locked on mine. The once familiar warmth was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating look. Her grip on Carter's hand tightened. She had made her choice. She had betrayed me, but now I was going to make sure she paid for it. "John Harrison, you've built an empire over decades," my lawyer Timothy said, addressing the court. "But that empire has been systematically undermined by those closest to him. We will prove that the defendant, Elizabeth Harrison, has orchestrated a conspiracy to defraud Mr. Harrison and his company. The room fell silent. Then, Timothy played the first piece of evidence, a series of encrypted messages between Liz and Carter, discussing plans to redirect company funds into a network of offshore accounts. The shock was palpable. The gallery was murmuring, but it was nothing compared to the look of disbelief on Liz's face. She hadn't expected this. But we weren't done. James, with Tony's help, presented the email exchanges between Carter and Michael, revealing Michael's direct involvement in siphoning off company resources and sabotaging the business. The evidence was damning. There was no denying it. Your own son, Michael, Timothy said, turning to Liz, was actively helping Carter funnel money into secret accounts, betraying not just his father, but the very company he was supposed to take over. The courtroom was in an uproar. But what really shook the room was when I stood and delivered my final statement. I trusted these people with my life, I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. I gave them everything, my wealth, my legacy, my family. And they turned on me. They betrayed me not just for money, but for power. But I'm not the one who's been defeated. They are. I pointed toward Liz, Carter, and Michael. And now I will make sure they answer for what they've done. Not just to me, but to everyone who believed in us. The silence that followed was deafening. By the end of the trial, the truth had been revealed, and the scales of justice had tilted in my favor. Liz and Carter were facing serious legal charges, while Michael's reputation had been irreparably damaged. The media coverage was unforgiving. The once glamorous image of our family had been shattered, and the world saw it for what it was, a betrayal of the highest order. The days that followed were a blur. Liz and Carter's legal troubles escalated quickly. They were both investigated for their financial crimes, and their wealth began to dwindle as the lawsuits piled up. For Michael and Christina, the public fallout was almost as damaging as the loss of their inheritance. They had chosen their side, and now they would pay the price. As for me, I had regained control of my company, but it was never going to be the same. The trust one had with my children was gone, perhaps forever. I couldn't pretend that everything would return to normal, not after what they had done. But through all of this, Emma was the one constant. She stood by me when no one else would. In a way, she had saved me, not just from the betrayal, but from losing myself in the process. As we stood together, looking out over the city, I realized that it wasn't just about the empire. It wasn't about the wealth or the legacy. It was about honor and the people who truly mattered. And in the end, I knew that Emma was the one who would carry that legacy forward. The story had come full circle. I had lost much, my family, my trust in the people I once called loved ones, but I had gained something far more important, the ability to stand on my own with my head held high, knowing that I had done the right thing. And now, with Emma by my side, I was ready to start anew.